1.
Good evening. Welcome to the August. Good evening. Welcome to the June 26th, 5 p.m. meeting in 2023 of the Templeton Economic Development and Industrial Corporation meeting. Could we start with a pledge of allegiance? Steve, would you lead us off, please?
Yes, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. So we'll get right into the agenda items 1A and 1B under marketing under 1. 1A is outsourcing digitally and 1B digital equity planning. I think I'm just going to turn this over to Steve. Steve, do you want to take the lead on these topics 1A and 1B?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
I sent you a memo to request that the Templeton UDIC consider the partial use of its funds to outsource for professional digital marketing services. And this may seem a little premature right now, as we're not there yet, but I do think we're going to want to be noticed. And that's what a digital marketing firm can do through social media, through e-newsletters and establishing databases, which is very important these days. And ultimately lead generation and quality lead generation, hopefully the kind of businesses that we want in Templeton. And as it is, some of the projects that I'm involved with TCTV, the Digital Lab, which is a business incubator, and Montechusett.tv could all use digital marketing, and we can't afford it. Yet we're intertwined with economic development, and this is, by plan from several years before to, if you have a local TV station, you want it to be involved, hopefully, in your town's economic development, and everything we're doing with the Digital Lab and trying to build an area workforce and inviting young people in, and with Montechusett TV reaching out to the region is kind of entwined with that as well. So my feeling is if it can be bundled and maybe we can put out an RFP, and I know the firm that works with us on the Montechusett TV website would probably be glad to send in the proposal. And others, I think the person through WBI's website would send in a proposal. And I think I heard about a couple of others that may want to do it as well.
So there are some potential providers in the region that we could get some quotes from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a digital marketer would be able to tell the story that we want to put out there about Templeton and how great we are and what we're looking for.
Thoughts, questions, comments, Liz?
I think it's a great idea.
Mike, you okay with this idea? Do you have questions?
I am.
Thoughts,
I love the idea. I mean, anything where you wind up using, digital, and it automatically kind of conveys that you're looking to be progressive, that you're trying to not just get mired in paperwork and debate or otherwise, that you've got movement, you know what I mean? It's there's mobility embedded with that concept of being digital. I had been working select board. I'm looking for the email. Let's see. Business View magazine. The last chair had been Selectman Chair Toth had been working with Adam on some solicitation from some publications. This one being Business View, and I had an interview with Mr. Chad Lovelace probably about a week and a half ago to talk about appearing, much like the way that you're talking about getting different sponsors, stakeholders, partners. Business View definitely wanted to be able to offer a cross-section of Templeton and several other Massachusetts towns in their magazine to be able to showcase what are communities doing? So in the interview, I wound up, talking about the Baldwinville School Project. We talked about some of the festivals that we do in town. That we are very agri-based. We talked about the butchers, the farms, the orchards that we have in the community and our in talking with them. And I actually talked to them about TCTV being a vibrant member of the community. It was that kind of thing there. He's like, I'd really like to include Templeton in that. So this really plays right into that, to be a part of a media network, that digital networking that you're talking about. So I had not thought about this until you described it. So I think that it's an excellent thing to do. The way that you say, put Templeton on the map, that's exactly what we're trying to do, to gain some visibility, some traction for different kinds of businesses and for opportunities as real estate and other areas become available in the community, to try and match someone's requirement. No one knows what someone needs unless you're out there and they are like, hey, you know what? I heard Templeton. I saw them in this magazine. I saw them on Montechusett.tv. They're looking for that. So I want to match that kind of resource with that. And have the community visibility. Without the community visibility, you wind up going slower. So I love this idea.
We can handle the, press releases. I can write press releases for you. But, a marketing firm might be better at getting it out there and getting the story out there. And we can handle all the, press the flesh type things in-house. I think the combination of those two things can be pretty dynamic.
It's a great idea. I support it 100%. And this is not a wet blanket comment at all, but if we have, and we do have a $200,000 budget, again, thank you, Forrest, Sarah, and Gobi, for getting those funds from the state. So we have a dollar amount. And right now, as we were chatting, I was thinking we have about 5 distinct potential uses of the funds. Digital marketing services, an economic development plan, which we need to submit to the state to be blessed by the state as an EDIC. We have a potential investment to make with Community Foundation of North Central Mass. Steve Adams was in at our last meeting, or the meeting before, I can't remember. Then we have the market study and then the feasibility study. Each of those will have a cost. And I think it's not a bad idea to get some quotes and understand what the potential cost could be for the market consultants to get some ink out there. The magazine you're talking about, Business View, just came out about a week ago. My day job, we advertised in it. The Sterling Town Administrator, Bill Caldwell, turned them on to us as a potential
That's good.
advertiser.
That's
So there's
Way
an
to-
article, to connect the dots.
Yeah.
So there's a snapshot spotlight on Sterling. I'm leading up to a question though. So it's nice that it's out there. Sterling's in there, and then our small ad for MRPC is there. Did Templeton get included in this Business View edition, or are you looking forward to the future, Mike, in a future edition?
Chad did talk about some deadlines. We had to provide some paper back. After my interview, I did not interface with Adam. I think he was out for a couple of days. So I wanted to, before I sent anything back, I wanted to be able to sit with him and talk.
So this could be a future edition.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. I think it's, is it a quarterly publication? I'm just getting into the weeds too much. I
Yeah.
apologize. But
I wish I could tell you at 257 pages, I would say it's at a minimum. It's quarterly.
it's not weekly.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And for the amount of staffing, it sounds like they have to perform.
Yeah, and part of the reason they sold wearing my day job hat on the ad was that this is live for about 2 years. So whatever investment I made as an advertiser, I know I got 2 years out of that, $1,600 or $1,700, or whatever that price was. So that's not bad. And I glanced at the Sterling article, it's 3 or 4 or 5 pages, and I didn't get to read every syllable yet, but I have to go back to it and do my homework. So, I mean, I personally don't have a problem if Steve wants to go out and, get us, can you maybe send us a draft? So we'll follow 30B, we'll follow procurement. It's an RFP, which is a request for quotes. up to 50,000 is quotes over that as proposals. I think we're well under 50,000. So you can get, quotes by, I would suggest by email, so we all agree on scope.
Mhm.
I'm just spitballing. I'm looking for
Yeah.
a vote soon on this, but if we can have something written to send out, so that way we're following 30B. All the competitors are comparing apples to apples and all that kind of stuff. In the day job, I'm a 30B person, so I like to make sure that we're always complying with that.
Certainly, I will get that to you.
Yeah, how's that? Does
So-
that sound okay? I mean, I would look for a motion to proceed tonight if that's okay, but let's not.
I was gonna say, would you like a motion? That's
Yeah,
it.
please. Yeah,
Motion so moved to,
okay.
Second.
So motion made and second to proceed with at least getting quotes.
Mhm.
And then we put on the agenda in the future, maybe they did make a decision. I mean, we need to see the budget before we authorize. Would that
Yeah.
be acceptable
Yeah.
to your motion?
yes, I'd like to see where we're sitting across our funds, just so we're doing things
Yeah,
wisely.
right. I agree.
So we have to do a formal, hey, here's how we're gonna slice everything out.
Well, as things start to bubble up, hold
Okay.
on, I think this is our third meeting and things are starting to bubble up. So we have a quote from MRPC, which I really love to defer discussion on that. I mean, talk about it tonight, but action steps, I'd really like to defer that till we get a fifth member
Mhm.
so that I can really just get out of the room and avoid any potential appearance or reality of a conflict. Yes, I work for MRPC for public disclosure. So if we get a fifth member, those four members still maintain a quorum. I can go in the hallway and you folks can just, decide what to do. Back to your comment or question, Mike, or both about, if I'm looking at about 5 potential bites at the apple of the $200,000. So if we get, if we have an ED quote, an ED plan quote, if we get a quote from the marketing entity, marketing services entity, then we have a number there. Then we look at, well, do we do an investment with the community foundation or not? And then what market feasibility studies cost? And those can be $50,000 to $100,000. So we can start to come up with a budget.
Right.
Bluntly. For
Right.
the organization of that 200. And I live by the day job, taking a dollar and leveraging against other dollars. So once we start spending this, we'll have lesser dollars to leverage
Yeah.
against grant funds. So that's really the sixth item. If we go after that grant over here, but typically you need matching funds for the grants I'm thinking about with the feds to do this kind of thing. You can write your own check to consultants, or you can take this money and leverage and get more money into the bucket of funds to get, more bang for your buck. So we're gonna come back to that in our next meeting. So I love this. I think there's a motion second on the floor to proceed in getting a quote. Any more discussion on the motion? Mike, you all said, Liz?
All
You
set.
good? Yeah, any more
All
from the
set.
presentation? Can I start from right to left? All those in favor, signify by saying aye or nay.
Aye.
Mike, aye.
Aye.
Liz, aye. And I'll make it unanimous aye. At about whatever time it's.
Got it.
Thank you. That's great, Steve. Can't wait. 2 is investments follow-up discussion. Now, Steve, you brought Steve Adams to the table. You want to take this one too? Take the lead on.
I thought we were going, you want to talk about digital plan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over 1B. I apologize.
That's okay.
Digital equity plan it's yours.
Okay, so there was a conference on June 13th at Union Station in Worcester about digital equity planning and so forth in Massachusetts. We're involved in some digital equity planning with Phillipston and Royalston. Right now, Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission and Karen Tucker is helping us put that together. And
Karen Chapman.
Karen Chapman,
Karen
I'm
Chapman.
sorry.
That's okay. No,
Tucker's
Karen
somebody
Tucker was an
else.
infamous person.
Yes, I was
I
thinking,
just
Yeah.
clarify for the record. That's all.
My mistake. And
That's
my
okay.
apologies to both Karen Chapman and Karen Tucker.
That's all right. I think they both take most compliments.
So digital equity planning is concerning itself more with socioeconomic gaps, people who aren't connected to broadband because of affordability or other means. So they're looking to get as many people connected as possible. Now, digital equity there's different flavors of this, and digital equity partnerships are the organizations or the nonprofit, non-government organizations who are going to implement these grants. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So a municipality like us do the digital equity planning, will find, okay, the library needs high-speed internet access or better high-speed internet access, and then we can apply for a grant for that through the digital equity partnership. So that's how it appears to be working. It's still largely being formulated. The key takeaways I took from this conference was that the focus is still clearly on infrastructure gaps, meaning basic broadband for everybody. And in the world of Mass Broadband Initiative and Mass Tech Collaborative, that means many of the communities in Western Massachusetts that have not been wired up for broadband and are in the process of being wired for broadband. I think they've done about 40 out of 52 towns. Royalston's getting wired right now for a new cable system with fiber in it. So it's largely around fiber optic cables for that. We're considered the middle mile. And we're third in line behind all those communities that have serious infrastructure issues. They don't have anything. They don't even have cable in their towns, and they're going to get wired. And then the digital planning, kind of the communities that are disadvantaged, that aren't going to be able, or that aren't able to afford broadband access. But there's about 930 million supposedly coming in middle mile funding that's been awarded to things like states and the cable companies, I believe, and other infrastructure providers. So I won't go through this whole thing. It's kind of detailed. The strategy for the Mass Tech grants are to do scalable things, and PCTV is a sub-applicant with Massachusetts Business Incubator and the Mount to become a digital equity partner and be able to do that. So I feel good about that we can scale up those programs. They're tying a lot of the digital equity planning to affordable housing initiatives that is strongly with the state, especially for affordable housing, their transportation hubs and things like that. But we have some affordable housing clusters, I think, in town that could be open to that. I'm going to do some more research on a couple things like open access in Westfield and Quincy. The Comcast rep voiced support for a public-private partnership, which is good news, and hopefully we'll hold them up to that. And somebody mentioned that digital equity and digital literacy can produce workforce development, which, as Glenn knows, with WBI, we're very interested in facilitating throughout the region. So I put some buzzwords and phrases in here. And I know, Glenn, you're big on that, especially when we do grant applications. Talked about the digital divide and closing that. I like the phrase underserved and overcharged. I don't like living it, but I like using that phrase in grant applications. And there's a very small percentage of people who have signed up for the Affordable Connectivity Program who are eligible, for low-income households. And so they're trying to get the word out for that. So I just thought it was interesting, and you may want an update, as I think digital equity and our digital equity plan may be tied in with an economic development plan in some capacity.
Is that posted, that kind of opportunities posted on the Templeton's website that people can sign up for any of this stuff?
Not yet.
And
Yeah, we can get the word out about it.
I mean, things like this, can we get the word out, get it out there in front, because there's, yeah, if we could somehow, I don't know how we go about doing that, but
So
if
the
we,
state is paying a variety of different consultants to work with municipalities to reach out to the public to grab information and say, are you a disadvantaged population? Do you live in an underserved area? So in the day job, we're working with 3 towns right now to do just that, to get out to the public. And that's the Karen Chapman work at my office. That's what she's working on, digital literacy.
so if there are people in town that qualify, and
Well, we're not at the qualification stage. This
Oh.
is more in the planning phase, at least in my day job, we're trying to figure out where the holes are in our community or communities. So actually, ironically, Pittsburgh and Leominster have huge swaths of their communities as well as the rural towns use spots that are, people who disconnected. So we're trying to identify those in the map and hear from the public. However, the municipal websites can be very helpful, back to your question, your point about getting the word out to people and saying, hey, are you in a disadvantaged area? But the part of the irony in there is, if you're not digitally connected, how do you get to the website?
Well,
But we're supposed to
out,
find
right.
other ways to do outreach. Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
exactly, but, I mean, so. The school, going back 3 years with COVID, the schools, I heard, luckily I didn't have a child in the school system at the time, but. I heard that the schools had so many problems with so many students that I'm sure they may not be able to say who today, because it's 3 years old, but at least be able to say, yes, we've had these kinds of problems, right? And,
Yeah. Right.
and getting out, I mean, before school gets out, contacting them, the libraries,
This is a multi-year process. It's
Yeah.
gonna take a while I mean, we will, again, I don't want to speak for my colleague at the office, but probably what she's going to do is reach out to schools in cable access and other people in the know who might know, and do a direct mail or phone calls to public housing authorities, say, look, are you connected? Are you connected? Are you connected? Oh, the school, what issues do you have? Yeah, we had to buy 500 jetpacks and send home to create hotspots.
Yeah.
Because kids didn't have any access to the dining room table or whatever. So just at the beginning of digital, equity and literacy by regional planning agencies and other consultants working with towns to figure this out. And then in I want to call it Steve's world, there's the digital not equity planning, but the literacy as far as like building up the infrastructure and identifying gaps. So they're indirectly related, but they're directly connected to the same state agency that's doling out the money to figure this out.
I mean, the other thing is that every 2 years, yearly, every 2 years, somebody in town has to go around and visit every single house,
So I'm going to defer to Steve about.
what I'm
Talking
thinking,
about the assessors.
yeah, the assessors,
Only the
right?
assessments.
Yeah, they're already doing it. I'm thinking.
That's
uh,
10
so
years. That's 10 years.
Oh, is it every 10? No,
Census is 10.
10, but I'm thinking the assessors.
They
I'm
have,
just-
they have a rotating process. They don't do all of them
Oh.
every 9 years. They have a system and a program that they go out. So yes, 100% of the inventory of the community is touched at some point, but it's resource intensive. So it happens over a number of years. So you get to that number of 100% at 9 years.
Is part of where you're going, like, if we can do outreach to the door knocks and add a flyer to
Yeah.
okay, I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
And because I'm.
Well, we're
thinking-
already out there.
You're already out there,
Yeah,
we're already
yeah,
doing
okay.
things, we're, whether it's, pick whatever agency or groups, departments within town already
Yeah.
that is doing this, or I don't want to add anything additional to anybody's already busy schedule, but, other things that they're already doing, whether it's the Council on Aging or the police department doing their, what's it called? Their community outreach things
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of these things that we're already doing. That's all.
We're very used to with the Deja using a lot of vehicles that exist. No, you don't have to apologize for anything. I love where you're going, because these are the questions we want to bring to the public and saying this is coming. And back at the planning issue, what we love to do is we always like to have a conversation. When we're asked to do a townwide survey, let's pick a topic, it doesn't matter. Well, one of the best ways to touch every household is a property tax bill. Slide in a little questionnaire that might be in the next card or something. And they can answer there and, posted, paid, pre-stamped envelope or whatever to send it back, or go to Survey Monkey and fill it out. So we've used those methods before, but we're gonna have to pull out all the stops and we're gonna touch everyone's household 1 or 2 or 3 times to try to get
Light
this
department.
information.
Light department.
Yeah, light bills, property tax bills, you name an invoice. I'll like them.
Partner with the light
Like
department.
department, because we used to
Yes.
for things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So can we partner together to say, okay. In the past, I remember vividly several times in several communities. There's a senior citizen work your tax payoff program. Have them come in and stuff envelopes. I think we used that in Templeton 20 years ago, and I'm sure you do it now. Yeah, it's a great program. It's a great program. So we gotta get up to those
We're gonna
people.
find out a lot of things, and rather than piecemeal them out. I think we come up with that with an economic development plan, then we come up with a communications plan that not only when things like this come up, we know exactly how we can send them out. Like our process in our minds right now, they're churning away. What department would love this the most? You know, where is it most logical? I think part of our plan winds up accomplishing that, and then we can execute and say, what are we trying to do? What's, you know, when we war game or MPRC gives, you know, they start doing interviews and they were like, what's important to you? I mean, Steve just laid out a ton of them. Just looking up the affordable connectivity. So it's affordableconnectivity.gov. It's 2 steps and you can get a computer at a subsidized rate and everything. Otherwise, that's great information. We just have to be able to come up with a mechanism. I see the edict as a long-term commitment to the community, not just a couple short things where we're like, yay, we got this, or it's being able to come up with a vibrant, I want to use the right word because we throw out a lot of buzzwords, sustainable, vibrant in terms of it does something. You know, someone's like, wow, I didn't think that my community would offer that to me. But it's a great idea.
Could you identify yourself for the record? And then please, love to hear from you.
Story Lane.
Hi, Terry.
How are you? So I'm with Mike in the long term. Is there a program or an app that you can forecast the cost of things? Like, you know, I had asked for the police station and I was told that it's, you know, good for 25 years, but 25 years from now, wouldn't it be nice, reading our financial report, if we put a couple $1 million or put money away in a good fund that for the next couple generations could sit there and they could build public service, public safety complex. So I hear, you know, like Mike said, and you said, these things happen over years. So is there any way you can forecast the cost into things and save the money or figure out where the money's going?
There are methods. They're different. One response quickly is you take the useful life of an asset is typically defined by the General Accounting Service Board for the nation, or you can look at the useful life of the loan or the financing. You know, typically it's tied to a mortgage. So what's the useful life of your house? 30 years, because that's your mortgage. So it depends on what source you use.
Yeah.
There are definitions.
And is that
can
something
apply.
that EDIC can do? Is that some part of the master?
Why don't
plan?
I tell you what, why don't we handle that under forecasting under item 5, but that's a little further afield than the enabling statute, what we would do. But I think it's tangential, but it's indirectly related. But yes, let me give you a better example. Let me give you an example that may not be better, may not be worse. If the community had closed a school, I'm not going to pick names, in the last 100 years, it doesn't matter, and then said 5 years before we plan to close it, or a year before we plan to close it, or any public building, gee, what can we do with that in the future? Get right to your question. Okay, let's say it was a school, and then we could plan ahead those last few years of that useful life as a school anyway. And typically what happens in Massachusetts, I can't speak for other states, is that we find that schools, you know, they have a useful life of, it's debatable, so, but 100 years, let's say. And then we're either plowing them into the ground and creating a parking lot or a soccer field, or we use them for some other purpose and across the Commonwealth in New England. Sometimes housing, sometimes parking lots, sometimes they're soccer fields. So the planning is best before the useful life of the asset ends, to your point about the police station. But yes, a redevelopment authority or an edict can look at assets, but all assets, and that's where it comes in. It's a piece of a bigger plan. So we have industrial areas that are zoned for greenfield development at the exits, the old exit, Baltimore Road and the King Philip exit, I guess I'll call them. So you have greenfield development, you have brownfield use development, you look at, you know, the occasional municipal building that pops up, or an occasional abandoned, whatever, pick the building and pick the property. So you're always looking at kind of greenfield development and then, you know, other development on sites for reuse, so that any one address could be looked at in the whole. Yes, so you can look at anything you want. It's just a matter of when you're going to spend the time to plan to look at those assets. And the first thing, we have some priorities like, well, we need an ED plan for the entity. What are we gonna do when we grow up? And then when we write the plan, that becomes probably a work task in the plan for us to attack in the future. So the long story short is, yes, that can be analyzed. You just want to do it according to a plan and a schedule.
And I wouldn't have it anchored on one building, you know,
No,
I would want it,
multiples.
yeah, there'd be criteria to be able to help develop that. Where it's not, I'm trying to keep one building idea, whereas the rest of the community may change.
Right.
You know,
This isn't about any one address. That's how the entity is about
right,
how it facilitates and encourages economic development to bring in jobs for job creation, job retention, growth,
Yeah.
economic growth. And then, and obviously tax revenue is a good thing, whether it's,
Yeah.
personal real property tax is all a good thing. But planned growth, which it says in the master plan of 07. So we're taking we're taking one task out of the master plan in the economic development chapter, which is create an EDIC. And there are probably 100 tasks, and we're running with that. So. Yeah. We're still on digital equity planning 1B. That was a good report. Any other questions, comments?
I do.
Thoughts? Please.
you talked about a PPP with Comcast, public-private partnership.
Thank you.
What would that look like? I know you're very. You have your ear to the rail for, like the select board just endorsed that letter. Basically saying streaming, these kind of how the industry may change. Public-private partnership with Comcast, would that help make internet or cable more accessible? Does it reduce cost? Did it, is
That's a loaded question and I have loaded thoughts on
oh,
it. The next round of negotiations with Comcast, which will start with letters next year, they won't get down to brass tacks until a year after that.
Right.
It'll be very interesting for us because of what we want and what they want to do. I think they're open to public-private partnerships, but a small town, if you're just gonna be a small town, we've had success with them on things because we fight them when we need to. You don't have much leverage. You need leverage on it. That's what I'm hoping a digital lab can provide us because we're bringing young people into a Choose It Business Incubator right now. They've got 3D printing. We started experimenting with 360-degree cameras, right? And maybe we'll even get into esports and digital gaming with them. And the idea is to get enough people in there to provide a digital workforce, a high-tech workforce for the area.
with the school.
Yeah, and that's what I think Comcast might be interested in, especially, I don't mean to keep bringing it up. We get into Scout Hall, I'm gonna have Comcast put the security system in there. That's at least my plan to do it. And you know what? We might review the security system. And I have access to high-tech publishers. So the idea is to take, I could start a feature article right now on hybrid systems, right? We got one more system. We could get it published in a magazine. We have instant credibility.
Mhm.
Comcast can be reviewed as well. But I think that would start, at least get us at the table with them in a higher chair.
I just listening to some of your ideas. Working with Comcast in a partnership in getting people interested in the workforce, that may be something that we could talk with the school as well, like from a studio perspective. Digital engine, what am I trying to broadcast communication, that kind of thing.
The high schools aren't offering those programs anymore, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And we're partnering with the college, which is good, but we're gonna invite all the high schools to participate too. And I don't know if you know.
I see what you're saying.
You read the report last week. We're gonna have 3 interns from Mass Higher, 3 STEM interns starting July 10th there. And they're gonna work for a month. They're gonna put them to work. And hopefully that will continue in some capacity down the line, but the school's been good about giving us interns, so they can be a feeder system for the digital lab, which in turn can be a feeder system for every TV station in this area is gonna need people working. And guess what? Schools aren't teaching media. They're not teaching journalism. And as a journalist, we used to hear people say, hey, my nephew wants to be a journalist. And we always say, don't do it, because it doesn't pay. But now I say, bring them here. I will teach them how to do it, because we're gonna need that in generations to come. And that's the biggest, scariest thing about being in a news desert, where you're not getting good coverage of your town, is it? Who's gonna study journalism so that they can do this work?
Yeah,
And
it has to be, sorry, I agree.
You know, we have to encourage.
And
it.
pay.
Watching Logan do the news, that's exciting.
And, you know, come on,
Gotta find the
give
slogan.
kudos to the girl.
Yeah, tell you. Love her.
Hannah runs it.
Love her.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
So, and then my idea is, some people aren't gonna like this because everyone says, hey, Steve, go out and get us fiber in town, right? The only game in town is Comcast. You know, you can go to a third-party fiber company and spend millions of dollars. Well, the first question I ask is, what about your cable company? Because now we're cutting cable out. I mean, what about us, TCTV, because we get money from the cable subscriber. So you're asking us to shoot our foot off, right? You know,
But people are cutting out cable more and more,
yeah.
you know, and they are.
And you can do a municipal internet service provider with fiber and offer a cheaper version, but first of all, they bought your TV station. Right, and the fiber companies will tell you, oh, you can have recurring revenue. I haven't seen a business plan yet for it. I haven't seen any examples. So in the tech world, that's called vaporware. Right, it doesn't really exist as far as we know. And Comcast has a history too of coming in. They tried this in the Cape with 5 or 6 towns, and Comcast came in and buried them by offering bundles. So after 20 years of dealing with Comcast, I want to say, I think you need a partnership with them. And that's how, for instance, Long Meadow got a high definition TV station. They didn't do it by having a Mexican standoff with them. You know, they did it by partnering with them. But
We found that as a pillar. I mean, you
Absolutely.
built it up at a very big capability within the community in terms of connection and otherwise. Let's build on that as a community and say digital equity, do I have the right word? Digital equity is part of our, what we're trying to do. I think it very much figures into that industry feel to say, we want to be a center of excellence for this, or at least a community of excellence.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, no, that's very important. The only thing I want to really contribute for the public record for this is that high-speed telecommunications is critically important to the private sector. What's the EDIC all about? Well, it's about businesses and jobs protection and creation. But you have to provide services to the business community. They need municipal water, municipal sewer, they need road access, they need really good transportation access to road and rail. And they need high-speed telecommunication and 30 other things. You biotech, you need 37 things. We're not going to pretend we're going to be a biotech community. But we can be high-speed,
Right?
right? As to your point about community excellence. So that's a really good thing. Keep going, man. Don't let the moss grow on you.
I would just say, I would welcome them to put fiber in, let's test it. I begged Verizon to do the same thing 10 years ago, right, and they stopped and Pittsburgh and Leominster. So,
Well, we know we have a couple of fiber, just through the parochial EDICIs, when we're looking at industrial zones, we know we have fiber on Baltimore Road. From Templeton Center, Baltimore Center, and it passes right by our best prime industrial area. It's okay that there's a 20-odd acre internet auction car facility in there. It's okay, because 100 years from now, it may or may not be the same thing. But next door is another 50-odd, whatever the acreage is, the Kimmeland clan property, and it's got fiber in the road. So we can get grant money, we can pull grant money in to do the planning, and then we can pull grant money in from the feds to build the infrastructure. We can build our own industrial park, but you've got to have the fiber there. So this is all feasible stuff. So I love the fact that you laid the groundwork for the long term with Comcast and bringing some of the stuff to the table, partnership. It's only going to help the whole community.
And the only other thing I will add is to Liz's point about getting information out there and finding out who needs help in town. There'll be public meetings for the digital equity planning, and PCTV certainly will, promote them. And I've been in touch with the housing authority. They have some concerns, and there may be some opportunities there for them. And they're gonna have digital equity stakeholder events coming up, and there'll be public comment on the state digital equity plan. So this is gonna take a couple of years.
Oh, this is at least a 3 to 5 year.
And I'll keep my eye on the stakeholder events and anything else and keep you updated.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you go to stuff where they say, okay, you attended or you didn't attend, here's the video link, then can you share the video links with Lori and us so we have that?
Sure.
Maybe we can populate our
I think they
ICP
did have
as
video.
information training.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what's up?
I think they did tape.
That'd be great. If we could have a repository, I mean, I'm signing up for so many things to Eventbrite that are free and day job and personal related. Because I want the video later on, in a cold winter weekend, that's a 3-day blizzard, and I actually have electricity. I want to download these videos, I'm just gonna watch these. I certainly don't go to some. Liz,
That's another thing. Templeton typically has electricity, but
Yeah.
everybody around us doesn't.
that's a heck of an asset.
Asset.
Yeah.
That is an
Play
asset.
that up, to
But
what
the-
Mike was talking about, playing up your assets. and being centered for us.
And that is, and I think we can statistically prove that too,
Probably.
you know.
I can only give anecdotal evidence that we've been in our house for like 27 years, it's all in the village. And we have never been out of power, aside from the ice storm,
Yeah.
that's an anomaly.
Yeah.
For more than 45 minutes, so now. Probably it's the light plant is right there, on top of it, they fix it, and I think that's something that's like in the top 10 assets. We
Yes,
market our town community for this to come in and expand with it.
Mhm.
I think it's industrial complex or whatever, greenhouse. or
or
whatever.
like,
Or more spinning alpaca parks, whatever they are. You need these assets. So,
we need electricity, we got it.
yeah,
So that's all I have on digital equity.
okay,
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, dude.
thank you, that's wonderful. Just a program note, so we're gonna end hard stop at 6:29, 6:30, we know that. And under item 6, when we do the minutes, can we figure out the next meeting agenda date if we haven't already? Just before I forget, because I will forget, that's all, so we circle back to that, I'm looking at our chief staff person, so.
Do you have some
Yeah.
suggestions? Prior to, okay. I just wondered if you had it.
I thought kind of,
We may have to come up with a date, but if we could do it under 6, but I'm planting the seed now for 40 minutes from now. Okay. So I'm useless without my calendar, I'm gonna punch it in. So, okay,
Alright.
thank you. So we can go back to the agenda. So item 2, investments follow-up discussion. Steve, you want to take the lead on that also?
I would just say, we talked to the community foundation, and if you keep them in mind.
Okay, and I want to add to that there are many ways to invest your money.
All right.
Thanks, you read my mind.
And
Appreciate it.
and right now in the day job, we are. So the regional planning agency is a public body corporate, it's just regional, it's not local, so we're just like you, we follow open meeting law, all the records, and all that fun stuff. We just happen to be regional, so we have a savings account, and it's in Mass Municipal Depository Trust, and I'm leaning over to Mike. Do you have MMDT as, or some other vehicle to save your money, is there a cash account?
For the town?
Yeah.
Multiple.
Multiple, okay, so I think if we're looking at investments, I mean, right now. We're earning about $2,000 a month because of the economy, and ironically, in what the MMDT, and this is a very safe, secure. Place to put your cash for regional entities, for public entities in Massachusetts. And they invest the money, and we're making $2,000 a month in interest off of 6-figure account of maybe $200,000, because the interest rate is so high right now. So we're getting a lot of good interest earnings. And I mean, I'm gonna sweep that interest to do capital improvements, so I don't have to raise it appropriate later on. But if we can look at investments from various vehicles where we do get closer to making a decision where we put the cash. For example, if the 200,000 right now is sitting in this high yield account, and we were earning even $500 a month or 1,000, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Please, nobody at the table or in the room or at home, hold me to any of these numbers. My point is that if we can put our money in a higher interest yielding account, that's legal, legitimate for public bodies in Massachusetts, I think that's something we need to look at. Mike, would you mind if I followed up with Lori on this later? And
Yeah.
and as you, with your selectman role, if you could contribute to that, maybe by email
Yeah.
to her later. Go ahead, you gotta go for something?
I was just gonna go grab a couple different dates because we're gonna fall on
Oh, thank you. Okay, we'll see you soon. Okay. We won't do anything pivotal without you. Mike, please.
And we're gonna, the meeting this week is part of our management review, so we'll wind up, we already have the materials for how we're doing, where are we keeping our money, so that will spur the discussion as well.
Good.
You're right on the money, right in Roselli's report, it said now's the time to put
Yeah.
money and invest because the interest rates are so high. that-
Yeah. And that'll change. And, you know,
It'll change.
more talks about recession and fears, ironically, where we, public bodies put money, it's safer and we earn a higher yield. When the economy gets better, that'll go away. So take advantage of the opportunity when we can. Excellent point. Excellent point. So can we move on to 3 logo follow-up discussion? I'm just gonna call this Steve's meeting tonight. So on this.
This is the last thing,
develop-
this is the last thing. Yeah,
Can we get the
this is
color
the logo
version?
we're doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you.
Oh, you're gonna throw it up there for us?
Up there.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I hope.
Very nice.
You all see that?
Yes.
So. Let's go back to the first one. We started. With a basic. Templeton EDIC Economic Development Industrial Corporation. There's an extra space in there that I can fix. And you should know, you don't have to just pick one. You can have a logo set too.
Oh, thank you for saying.
All
that.
right,
I would
so
not have
like
known
we
that.
have different
Yeah.
TCTG logos. There's a,
One that you
yeah.
can do wide and then
yeah,
letterhead. kind of
yeah,
stuff.
there's a standard.
Okay.
Versus TCTV, there's a standard one on our bumpers, on our programming. You'll see
Bumper?
3, yeah. It's
Okay, I'm
like a
going back to the
little
old Ford
thing.
LTD now.
No, it's like a
Go ahead.
little, it's just like a little logo flash at the end of a show.
Oh, thank you.
And it's in, 3D brushed aluminum. Right?
Sure.
So you have different things.
Neat.
All right, and you can use for different purposes. You should pick one main standard.
Okay.
Like TCTVs is bold, italic, spring green. You know, so anyways. Added a little hint of yellow. Somebody suggested moving Templeton forward. As a logo, I think you wanted to maybe have a slogan below instead of spelling out Templeton Economic Development Industrial Corporation, but whoops. I don't know how that happened and I don't like
Sky's
it.
the limit. I get it.
That's not that tagline. You can have, we can have multiple taglines,
Yeah,
right?
so there's, the hint of yellow, which was suggested, there's a hint of yellow with Templeton Economic Development Industrial Corporation.
It's
You
still
may
enough to
want
be.
something like that for your letterhead, just to identify who you are.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a little swoosh with it.
Is that the technical term? Swoosh. I like that.
Sure.
Oh, gives it some depth maybe too?
There's just like a little swoosh in the background.
Sure.
I'm not sure how I feel about that, maybe too distracting.
Yeah.
Moving Templeton forward with the swoosh.
Maybe busy. Okay, depends on the eyes of the person. I understand
Yeah.
that. Sure. What else you got?
There's something else there. Growth, resilience, prosperity. Again, the swoosh may be a little too much. Yet it works here. Hey, you can be green. You can move the triangles around and make it pretty. You can have a rocket. So you can do all kinds of things.
It's
I created about 20 different specialty Montechusett TV logos with different typefaces for different, like one for Halloween,
Really?
one
Yeah.
for different things. So you can have a set.
So you have like, you can do it seasonally on.
Yeah.
That's
So I would say do something like this or that. If you like the yellow, we can keep it. And I would say if you have to do things like, probably not a call for it, but if you wanted to print T-shirts or swag or something, try to stick to one color.
Right. Gotcha.
But you could use this for an electronic letterhead. Or if you want to pick another slogan.
The only thing that I don't like about that one is the redundancy of Templeton. So Templeton EDIC moving Templeton forward.
So,
It's redundant. So instead of saying Templeton EDIC moving Templeton forward, opportunity to say moving our community forward, moving industry
that.
forward, moving, something like where you get a little bit of a little bit of a pickup
Well, industry is
And-
across our shield and our town seal. So
Yep.
or could tie in, to your point,
right,
or business or whatever. Pick a word.
moving prosperity forward, like it gives you an opportunity to almost have that in for what your goal is.
Yeah.
See the goal in your logo. With the first one you put up there, just with the EDIC spelled out, it didn't. It looked long, almost like you needed to do a carriage return, but then it becomes too wordy. I do like the message below it. I just think Templeton's a little bit redundant.
Yeah, we don't need to touch.
Right.
The thing I like about the Templeton with economic development spelled out below it is that would be okay for like letterhead.
Yes.
To say, well, what is EDIC if you're in San Jose County?
Right.
That's okay, so it explains it.
So
So you don't need that every.
dismissing your letter right away because they don't even know what ADIC is as they start reading.
Exactly. It's like, oh, something about business. Okay, that's. I'm not married to the yellow.
No,
It's just-
I'm-
it's like it's lost,
I-
kind of busy.
It, not only that, but people who are colorblind, that may not be, yeah.
I may like the swoosh better than I do the yellow.
Yellow's my favorite color.
Right,
The
Yeah.
three-dimensional design is there with the arrows. The swoosh back in the back of it kind of connects with that
You like this one? then?
three-dimensionalness,
Mhm.
even though it may not come through on everything. You've got like a high, you're on a smartphone, you're gonna see it, but if like you're doing a videograph copy of something, dated, right? It's like,
It's okay.
if you're got a Xerox, oh, I'm getting a little bit more current. If you make a
Big
copy,
black and white.
and you may not see it. I like that. I just changed that, the Templeton part in the bottom,
Moving our community forward.
or moving community forward.
Yeah, or do we want to
Keep it-
put something, so. Yeah, moving the community forward, do we want to do something about sustainability, about? Because
Then we get into like a mission statement, moving Templeton forward
Yeah.
sustainably with resilience.
Then you can have specialty ones like this.
this-
Only want to be green.
but my concern is that, so. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's brilliant. So. Go back one. To the swoosh. We're taking them Templeton out, but we're keeping moving forward there.
Mhm.
And you bold or you somehow specify that middle word in every single one of your different one, with the one with the pine trees. You put sustainability, you change it for what your message is. So when we come up with our digital products and otherwise, each area. Moving digital forward, moving digital equity forward.
Yes,
So
yes.
you have your basic one. I don't know,
Moving blank
maybe
forward.
Templeton does work there, but you change that middle word. And you change it for every single time that you wind up having a variation, or you're trying to tell a different story.
For all of those taglines that he would,
Yeah.
for marketing purposes.
Right, like he had all, like
That's
a
cool.
bunch of them, whether it was the sustainability with the trees or
Mhm.
digital. I'm sure that you've got like a clip art that.
Yeah,
that could
moving digital
denote
forward.
digital.
Right,
Right.
yeah, because.
We can do that.
I
yes.
love that.
And those different messages mean something, because I wouldn't want to get married to any one of those words. Like sustainability or digital. Well, I think we should use all of those to speak to all audience, or as many audiences as possible. But if we're just about sustainability with a pine tree, then the private sector might think, oh, they only want green businesses, oh, they only want a turbine development. Or something, green energy.
So this
But
is-
no,
That one does not look as serious as the swoosh one. Do you know what I mean?
No, I prefer, but I prefer that this. I really didn't like the Swish one, but I like the Swish one for the other reason. I prefer it over the trees, right?
Yeah,
Because what? I think at least what, my personal opinion, I would like to see our town talk about this, yes, talk about sustainability, talk about a little bit, but not stress that one thing, not put all our eggs in one basket, right? But stay away from some of the things that are more, I'll say less sustainable for the community long-term. You know, my family's been in town for multiple generations, and I worry about the next 7 generations. I want to make sure this town is safe and for the next 7
So
generations.
sustainability probably speaks to.
It
like,
does,
Sustainability.
right, but it doesn't need to be the one thing.
That shouldn't be our only tagline,
No.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
it's the story, but it'll always be a community.
Exactly,
Base
community.
of the community. And in our base document, our baseline documents, we define that. We basically say what makes what makes,
Our community.
right, a municipality, you're incorporated, what makes it viable, what makes it cohesive? It's because it's a community. What builds a community? All of those things kind of feed up underneath it.
Because if you think about everything that our town already does, and it goes back to the beginning of our conversation tonight about, you know, the business, the thing about all the different things that we do in town, all the different events that we have in town. And all of those things have the same sort of message. Generic, you know, very broadly speaking, throughout it, it is about community, it's about family, it's about some, you know, all of those things. You know,
Can I ask a point of question off the graphic? So we keep talking about the swoosh. And I like this because this will go down as not only, maybe this is the swoosh meeting for the future. But is the swoosh better below where it is now in this, or is it better in that orangey yellow behind?
Is it the
background?
same shape?
Is it better with the letters or below the letters? That's what I'm trying to ask. Or is it both? Or both
Go
okay?
down one.
It's
There's a
hard,
lot
I
of-
think
it's hard to fit your whole
So-
truck.
Steve can use that swoosh there, and he changes it to fit to whatever logo he's using, whatever, you know, whatever
tagline goes.
storyboards, right?
Got it.
If it's in the middle up there, it's an orphan. It looks like it belongs to the arrows. So if it's below
Right.
with
Right.
the base tagline of, I'm just gonna say, moving community forward.
Mhm.
Anytime you change that, you can use that bottom swoosh as a part of telling that story.
And
The
the looks-
sustainability, it looks like a field. The
Yeah.
swoosh turns into a field.
Yeah.
If it's digital equity, we're connecting, right? So you put some digital stuff in there and within the swoosh there, that denotes connectivity. If it's in this industry, if it's, no, you can play with this as well, moving Yum forward, trying to build,
Whatever.
you know,
Word
like,
choose.
restaurants, you know, so we wind up saying what's a strength in our community. During COVID, I mean, Lori, that was a huge thing. Our outreach to our local restaurants was absolutely huge. Because they needed to stay in business and they needed to stay safe. So, you know, we can have fun with it.
I love that, moving Yum forward.
I know, too. Terry, go ahead.
How do you feel about the word village,
Could you say that word again?
villages?
Villages?
Villages.
You could say a community villages. I don't know if it would work with moving villages forward.
I love the
Because I
word
don't.
community.
Yeah, community
Yeah.
is,
Community, it's all encompassing.
it is, and
So it's-
Villages is a little bit it's sectorish. That's a word. Make it up right now. It's partitioning. So then I have to define for each of the 4.
So I can.
I'm not, well, I mean, we're not at war with each other. At least I don't think we are.
Well,
It's not
it's-
like
that was
East
50
Templeton needs to mobilize and take over Baldwinville.
Yeah,
but-
I think I think now we're getting.
community,
Gray area,
let's,
potential conflict and resurrecting old
yes, let's not go there.
Okay.
issues. Yeah, villages. I mean, we are one.
So I can
But it's
bring,
a strength that you wind up talking to.
Yeah.
It's a story, it's one of those storybooks.
Yeah.
You could do that. Well, is that what you meant, like as a sub-story? Or did you mean it at the top?
No, substory.
Oh,
Which
it's
is
a great idea. I think it's great for
And I'm
a
sure the
sub-story.
word village and villages will be a part of our ED plan because that's where our mixed use centers are for residential and small businesses. Yeah, yeah. I think there'll be a subheading plan, so.
So I can rework these pertaining to how we spoke tonight about things and rework the tagline and so forth and give you another set.
I think I'll end up with 10 or 20 of these ultimately.
No, I'm gonna keep it.
That's a lot of focus. We had a lot, I mean, that was very good discussion. I
Yeah.
think really good focus there, so you can wind up honing in.
So
There you go, Liz.
I like that. I like that
Yeah,
one.
I've been having
It's
that.
very Montechusett.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Sorry,
doing,
I didn't
doing things
influence
with the
that.
tar. Here's one to end. There you go.
Smile.
That one's moving young forward.
See, there you go. I'm sorry, what was it?
Do you want the seal?
Where would it go?
Yeah, we're,
If you replace the graphic with the town seal, take out Templeton. On the top.
oh, like in the upper left-hand corner above EDLC.
And
you could.
Small.
It's right now, as far as I'm concerned, it's part of the public.
I
discussion.
can,
No, I missed
so-
this.
Yeah,
I'd like-
oh, instead of the triangles.
oh, for the logo on the right-hand side, we could do that. That could be
Okay.
another.
Love using the logo. I like the logo. It's when you gotta figure geography at that point, geography of the actual logo, how it's gonna all play together.
But if you
And
go
also-
with the three triangles, and smiles you could put it there, let's say it geographically.
That would
work. And the word industry is across the seal of.
Or it's circular, would it fit inside the C? That's a tough one.
And on a letterhead, you're gonna have the whole right side available for a seal. Because that's it's not one that's gonna stretch easily all the way across without taking a couple bits.
So a letterhead could have our logo and then the seal. separate.
But I'll work up a couple with the seal in it, couple of logos.
Yeah, let's look at it.
Industry, community, sustainability. There's another one,
Digital equity.
digital equity of some sort. And
Oh, yeah, there's a lot you could.
Keep the words coming. I'll incorporate them.
I'm just thinking about general themes
Yeah.
of things that are, they're positive, that somebody looks at going, oh, what's the story it tells somebody just with just that? What are we about?
If we have other thoughts, we can always email Steve.
Yeah. Construction,
Mm-hmm.
innovation.
Like innovation.
You know what the business community wants? They want expedited permitting process. Not that we're gonna use that as a tagline, but that's gonna be on page 1 of our plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As with construction, permitting, anything.
The construction word.
Go to Lori and
Yeah,
Jessica.
that got me.
What's that connotation of building?
Yes, yes. And again, back to moving forward, building, constructing,
Right.
momentum.
But it's also then fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun, yeah.
Fun, absolutely.
Yeah,
A lot of events. This is a fun.
That is, that's a big one. Out of that study that Adam had commissioned through Western New England College. He's
No,
gonna tell me.
Westfield.
Westfield.
Who's gonna-
State.
It's already out of my mouth. I got it. Westfield State. For what the community wants in terms of fun, recreation, festivals, those sorts of things. So moving fun forward.
Quick question as a follow-up to that is, are there other studies that have been done locally that could be shared with the EDIC so we can kind of better
Recreation study.
Because you have that in your head. This is the first time I've heard about it.
Yep. There was a recreation study. There's been a street study, street survey. We've had a couple of surveys done through the town administrator's office. They had one about the town common, although we have a master plan, a lot of the same tropes were very transparent during that process to say what people are looking for
Current master plan for the town?
17. So if you read 2017 master plan,
Yeah, yeah,
the current survey talked a lot, like,
okay,
we want to keep the small town feel. We want to, we want more retail businesses.
Gotcha.
Guess what it said? 17.
because there was an 08 master plan for the Templeton County,
Yeah.
it wasn't for children.
And Jeff Bennett had brought it up when we were talking about that discussion in the town common. He had referenced one that was older. When it was a slightly different construction, different time period, so it might have been that.
We did the 08.
Yeah.
Yeah. 08 to 09, and just the summer of 08, I don't remember.
Yep.
So that's the only one I really know, but you're mentioning about 5 new ones that I'm not aware of.
It's 5 past.
Yes, we should move on. Can we move on? Are you, everybody okay
I'm all
with that?
set.
Steve, great artwork, keep going.
That was a really good discussion.
Yeah, that's possible, always the right direction. The 4 ED plan quote discussion, the MRPC quote, so Karen submitted a quote to Liz, Lord provided it to us. I have it in front of me, and it says a certain number.
Yeah.
It says $49,000, so my recommendation to every public body, whether regardless of where I sit in the public room, is always get multiple quotes, take what you want to do, read this and vote this. I don't want to comment on it. I have a conflict of interest. So I heard we may be inching closer to a 5th member. So I mentioned earlier, if we get a 5th member, if we can put this on the agenda for that meeting when we have a 5th member, and then I'm going to get out of the room and you folks can talk about this. I just feel a lot safer. It's cleaner that way. Is it okay with you people? And if you want to discuss it now, I'll leave. But mechanically, we have it, and then we should discuss it at some point.
David, is that the perspective?
David Connor.
Okay.
I spoke to, he couldn't make it tonight because of conflict, but he said he's interested.
Okay,
Okay,
so it's high likelihood. And that would be the
Medium likelihood?
because
Medium, okay. We'll take medium. Housing Authority Chief,
yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
I would be willing to hold on.
Mhm.
I would like to strike while the iron's hot, and we're pretty excited about it, and that's gonna help. This document is gonna help us. It's our tool, it's our enabling
Yeah.
event, it's a milestone event to help us form those requirements. So I had a motion ready to go, but if we want to wait till we're a little bit bigger, if we're talking within 90 days, we could have the discussion. I'd be open to that.
Well, my gut tells me if we meet within 60 to 60 days-ish, if we're talking about this every other month system. And then if you all decide to move forward with one or get quotes from others, but if
But
you
we
go
don't
with any
have-
one, you don't have to either. So that's entirely up to the board. I think. Any entity right now, many entities right now are struggling as we are in the day job with finding people to do things. I'm having to outsource jobs to consultants and other regional planning agencies to do that too. People, for all the reasons we know nationally, people are applying for jobs. So we're all struggling. So there's not a high likelihood that the day job Karen would be able to jump
We'd
on
have to
this.
come up with an RFP, right?
You basically take this, you take the task, you copy and paste them, you put in the queue. Because you're on 50,000, and then you just, you email it to 10 or 20 consultants out there and you ask for 5 business days to give you a number. So you can do that very quickly. You do the quoting process and follow, be within 30 days. You can do that now. And save 2 months if you want to get other quotes, which is always what I tell local officials when I'm really on the other side of the table. I said, look, you're a government, we're a government, we can contract you now. Or you go out to bid, and MRPC may or may not quote the job. So it's up to these local officials. But that could be copied and pasted and sent to consultants as of next week. So you'd have a more robust discussion, quite frankly, when next would be. We wouldn't lose time, because I see the concern on your face, and I hear you loud. Because this has to be done so we can get blessed by the state.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take, it's a year process.
Is that
So
so? The period of performance would be a year.
realistically, you're not looking at doing anything in 6 months anymore, just because of the volume of the work that comes into consultants these days. The lack of people working, all of these factors that are going on, and things take longer than they did before COVID. I don't know how long Karen has in mind, but Get up and over this overnight.
Oh, yeah.
If it was pre-COVID, it might be 9 months. It's the first time, maybe it's 9 months. That's a Karen cut.
Ari and Jessica, how? Because we're talking RFQ, unless one of the board members wind up, or one of the edict members winds up volunteering to start doing that kind of paperwork, we're talking about potentially like a one-page RFQ.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about an email. You've literally copy and paste that narrative under the tasks.
Whereas we have the ability with a known, with a known provider of this service.
Direction or.
I'll tell Karen you're gonna call her tomorrow.
I
Just
would,
getting
well, I
up-
mean, I would help develop the RFQ. It's after that to be able to
It's more,
action it.
how am I gonna find people consultants?
That was my question.
I'll email you a list.
Okay.
They're out there. At the office on Mr. Procurement. So I'm
And
happy to
then
help
we have to
somebody
go
out.
through a selection process.
With quoting, it's basically highest or lowest, so in this case, lowest, but based on that scope. If you get into proposals, then you're looking at qualifications in addition to price. So if you want to go, that takes time, that's a 60-day RFP process. Quoting is just literally copy and paste that, send it out to a list of providers, getting a number.
Whereas if Dave comes, sits on the board and says, why did you all do that? Look,
And having
we have the
input from- yeah.
discussion first.
Having input from a housing person would be very helpful, because you might think of something that's a little on here.
I always have problems with going with the lowest bid because
We're following the chapter 30B of the
Yeah.
procurement process, and that's what it says you gotta do.
Yeah.
But I respect where you're coming from, and there is some provision in there, it's like, look. If you have a justifiable, the town, we, the EDIC in this case, if we had a justifiable reason why the lowest responsible quoter in this case. Was submitted a non-responsive quote is the language, is the legal
Yeah.
term. And you can prove that,
that's.
then you don't have to take the lowest, but generally speaking.
Yeah,
you do.
you gotta take. the-
And 90% of the time you're okay, but sometimes it doesn't. work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people that I know in the state that would provide you with good service is just. And we're so, and they're starting to retire and resign and retire and retire, so we're gonna get to some of these. aspects.
Mhm.
Fairly quickly. And there's some, and quite frankly, I just got to quote something. In another volunteer capacity, not here, not in MRPC, somewhere else. And this company's out in Indiana, but they have a Boston office. And they're looking for work. So there are some companies that are looking to help and they do this kind of, it's related.
Yeah.
So that's, I didn't think about that till just now, I just. Sent it in the- It's really copy and paste and send, and I just got the watch on the wrist thing, so we gotta go. Glenn, stop talking. Anything else on the quote? Is the board okay with sending out a quote if we help Laurie
I'd like to talk to Dave first, I'd like to,
and get him on the board and then have the discussion?
because we're not losing a lot of time
Mhm.
by doing that to our next meeting. And then our next meeting, we actually might have a decision to go forward with MRPC.
Do you want to do a 30-minute meeting in August and then have a more full meeting in September if David's available in August?
It appears that August 14th is currently available.
Okay, we could do that, just we could do
August.
one topic, we could do minutes in that if we want to do that then. He gets,
Yeah.
if he's interested,
Yeah.
he's gonna be appointed by the select. board
Right,
to be
intro.
legal
Yeah,
here,
okay.
get sworn in, and then you guys can talk to him, I leave the room, we do the minutes, and then we're done. At our next meeting. Not a full hour and a half, is that okay? That way we'd expedite a little bit.
Yeah.
And get his input.
Go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna go for it, we got consensus? Okay.
Yeah, instead of dealing with new business, we basically just clean up any old business we
Yeah,
have with that
just,
meeting.
just do that, and if something else pops, then we add it to the agenda, but I mean, just a simple meeting. We've been meeting at 5, is that still the time we would shoot for?
Well,
I'm sorry.
We were meeting at 6 and 5 was Tuesday. Yeah, but we're,
Yeah, I don't remember, so 5?
Fine, but
Five's fine.
Here anyway.
I can do 5. I can do
Just
6.
double check, hang on, sorry.
Can you?
We like her.
I can do 5.
You like earlier meetings? Oh, TCTV? Did you say the 14th, Lori, of August?
August 14th. It should be a Monday.
It is.
Would you say 5 p.m.?
5.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
I think you still want one in September too. A regular one.
I would say yes, because this would be kind of a. If the admin can
I
be
would
done.
say
through
let's-
sworn in.
Let's plan them, and then if the chair and vice. If the agenda looks like it's too thin, we can always cancel it.
Always defer.
Yeah.
Got it. So for right now, we will look at the MRPC quote in minutes for August 14th at 5 p.m. Unless something else comes up. Deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yup.
Do you just do that?
Let's make it, yeah, you want to make a move, Mike, you want a second maybe, or for Steve? You got a second, you got a motion, second, all those in favor to have a 5 p.m. meeting on August 14th for these 2 items, minutes and the MRPC quote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, we did again. Okay, simple.
Lori, do you want to shoot for September 11th?
I have it circled.
All right.
For the next one, while we're on that, okay, so while we're on that topic. Are we looking at 5 or 6 on September 11th?
5's good by me.
Mike?
Sure.
Or is it
5.
By consensus, can we just agree? Is that okay? Yeah, all right. It is. So we get the next 2 meetings established. What we haven't done is forecasting on item 5. I'm drawing a blank, forecasting, I'm so sorry. I did, I know, this was me.
Yeah, I mean, Terry was here for.
Oh, yes, we
Yeah.
kind of chatted about that already. Yes, about, okay, yeah, examining all properties in town, you can certainly prioritize on this and so on, whether it's a police station or this or that. School. Or
The tough part about having that conversation is it's $2.1 million project. And the life cycle that was briefed to the capital at the time was 40 year.
Wait, can we back up now? Was the $2.1 million project of the station revamp? Expansion? Is that what you're
Yes.
talking? Okay, just for the public, for me and.
Right, it's that revitalization of that building,
Gotcha.
whatever it was, Terry's vision of. It wasn't something before, it's something now, what will it be in the future?
Got it.
It's very difficult to have, when we signed all the papers and town meetings said, yes, we want to please. I don't think anyone stood up and said, well, what's it gonna be on the 41st year? And it's the discussion of what is going to happen? How are you going to source different kinds of ideas, public safety complex, a variety of these different things? That would be the situation where I would think that you would have the discussion in 40 years where this building was on its 5th HVAC renovation. Making jokes now, but Mike Bennett will probably punch me the next time I see him. No, for all joking aside, you wind up saying what in 40 years, where is that building? It's still town property. We don't know.
Well, you couldn't have predicted that this
They could have
building,
another renovation, and
you couldn't have predicted that this building was going to turn into town hall.
probably not.
Terry.
So my concern partly is with the new police rules that, there are no part-time officers. I'm not sure. I don't think that can explain it better, but it seems like they're gonna need to increase the workforce. And we're still, I guess there's 1 police officer or something. There's a state mandatory, this amount of police officers for this amount of people. So how fast is Templeton gonna grow? how
Oh,
big is,
oh,
That's
that'll-
being part of that conversation,
That'll-
to talk about what its requirements are.
how
yeah.
big that is that building?
So that-
How
so
many
that'll-
feet?
State and federal have like guidelines for
Yeah.
how much space you need for certain.
So the
things.
old criminal justice student in me, when I was taught, it was for every 1,000 population, you have 1 or 2 police officers. And
Oh,
most
yeah.
municipalities
He
across
reminds
the
us.
nation, right, and most municipalities across the nation have 1 police officer per 1,000 population. So, so that's based on the variety of studies. And virtually nobody has 2. But I respect where law enforcement comes from when they say we need more policing power. So that's between select board and police, but that's. I mean, I think, you know, your question, Terry, about municipal asset, what's its future use? Is valid for, in the EDIC's world, we'll look at, you know, bluntly, all commercial and industrial zone property conducive to business development. And if there are thoughts about municipal assets, buildings or properties, that's why a lot of economic development committees and EDICs or development authorities, they'll say, let's write a letter to the assessor or the town mayor or somebody or whatever, the mayor. Assessor's office, say, okay, let's get a list of all town-owned lands, see if there's anything there that we can repurpose for economic development. That's a valid request for information. That's okay. But that's just one of 100 data points to look at. Municipal buildings, greenfield assets, you know, where you zoned for business use, all of those things go into the pot. It becomes this very big beef stew. So the piece of the beef, one piece of beef is, you know, that you're not gonna digest for 40 years is an asset you just poured X dollars into, that you're gonna use for X number of decades.
It's a changing environment.
Right.
I would think with any town property, you would, like we did with the school, you would do an assessment of, is there another requirement within your community, your town offices, like Steve expands, now he needs a full production, you know, just a scenario. Or we wind up having a substation for DPW or I don't know.
Right,
It's
you
all
don't
these
know.
different things that you can't forecast. I mean, you can,
Mhm.
it's just, it's hard to do. You have to role play scenario, you know, the scenario to say, if this were to occur, if this expanded.
Yeah.
You know, if there was an annex required by a town office.
I think the reality is that studying the reuse of the police station now, and one member of this, so something that's 40 years away. I mean, the minutes would be lost in 40 years. Whatever we did today would be lost. But if what we should do is look at all the assets in the community and see, you know, we should have a paragraph in the plan or a whole page or a section that says, look, we're gonna look at all assets of the community. We define assets as these things, you know, and or, you know, municipal assets, municipal owned properties. And then that's basically gonna be that'll just hang there for something when it comes up and when it becomes available. But to spend a lot of time, you know, assessing for any municipal asset that you can use now. I wouldn't advocate looking at something that's occupied now for future reuse. But I will share with you my humble opinion for what it's worth. I never would have put the police station there. I never would have put the elementary school where it is. I never would have repurposed this for town hall. But I'm just one of 8,000 people. So anyway, so decisions were made. We have what we have. And hopefully we can do some different things in the future.
How do you plan as a town to like upgrade? And put
Capital
things
asset.
in the right place?
Capital asset planning and the capital asset bylaw.
So you-
That's really, to me,
Yeah.
as the outsider, really, that does this. I mean, I wrote the capital plan and the capital bylaw back in 2000. That's what its purpose is. You look at all your capital assets through municipal eyes, through the capital planning committee and the capital bylaw, if you ever adopted them. I think you did. I just don't remember. It's been so long. And that's the role. You know, repurposing a municipal assessment or building new assets is really capital planning and select board. Then you're involved in finance, right? You're involved in the advisory committee and you are the triangular table that looks at those types of things. But the EDIC is looking at where we can build businesses, retain businesses, create jobs, retain jobs. For job creation and for tax revenue.
The unencumbered idea people.
The unencumbered idea. I love that. I'm
Can I
gonna.
submit? I just looked up this is, there are 13 property cards all in the same area. I was thinking of Mike, I was gonna give them to him because he's so good with GIS.
Is this one owner in question or are these multiple?
Yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
tax title.
Yeah, can you give those to Lori and she can put them in, because there is a book Lori showed me that was done 5 years ago for it. So I think we have a municipal properties research binder. And that's, you know, that's a subheading for looking at town-owned assets, right? 6:24 or 6:25, and I think we covered everything on the agenda, except for the minutes. We didn't adopt the minutes yet. So can we do that mechanically while carrying the light?
Yes,
I'd make a motion to accept the minutes of May 1st, 2023 EDIC meeting.
Cool. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to accept the minutes of that date, May 1? All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising the hand.
I,
Aye.
We have a unanimous ayes on that.
yay.
Love the logo, Steve.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I move that we
Anything you
meeting
want to move to adjourn?
to adjourn?
Is there a second to move to adjourn at 6:25?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. You got
Aye,
5
aye.
minutes extra. Yeah, thank you. Logan, thank you.
Say meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Yay,